Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a mountain of information and distill it down to the most important, insightful, and often surprising nuggets just for you.
That's right.
Today we're embarking on an extraordinary journey, really peeling back the layers of a truly iconic figure. Someone whose influence, well, it continues to shape our digital world in ways we probably don't even fully realize.
We are diving into Walter Isaacson's definitive biography of Steve Jobs. And this book, it's really unlike any other. It's based on over 40 intensely candid interviews with Jobs himself, conducted over 2 years, plus, more than 100 conversations with his family, friends, adversaries, colleagues, everyone.
Wow.
So this isn't just a simple timeline. It's a truly unvarnished view. It reveals the complex interplay of his passions, his relentless perfectionism,
Perfectionism, yeah.
his profound obsessions, his artistry, and even the occasional bouts of what some might call devilry. And all of that fundamentally shaped his approach to life and to business.
That's precisely why we're here today. Our mission really is to unpack that intricate personality, that relentless drive. Here's a creative entrepreneur whose, well, ferocious will and passion for perfection revolutionized not just one industry,
Not just one.
but a staggering list. Personal computers, animated movies, music, phones, tablet computing, digital publishing.
You could probably add retail to that list, too.
You could. Definitely 7. If you include his radical reimagining of retail with the Apple stores, it's an almost unparalleled record of disruptive innovation. Just incredible.
It absolutely is. And this deep dive, we're going to explore how Jobs managed to consistently connect that profound creativity with, cutting-edge technology.
Yeah, connection is key.
Right. He didn't just build products. He built a company where these audacious leaps of imagination were seamlessly combined with remarkable feats of engineering, all while navigating a, let's be honest, tumultuous personal and professional life. We'll see how that unvarnished view, his raw, unfiltered way of being, how it directly shaped the innovative products that became, cultural phenomena, and ultimately made him the icon of inventiveness and applied imagination.
So what does this all mean for you, listening in? Well, it's about far more than just tech history, isn't it?
Much more.
It's about understanding the very essence of innovation, the complexities of character, the nuances of leadership, and the enduring power of core values, all through the lens of someone who, and Apple's legendary Think Different commercial put it perfectly, was crazy enough to think they can change the world, and actually did.
He really did.
So let's embark on this fascinating story. Let's really unpack it. Okay, so our journey into Steve Jobs' life, it begins not in some gleaming tech campus, right? But in a rather humble setting.
Yeah, surprisingly humble and incredibly instrumental, his childhood home.
Right. And his adopted parents, Paul and Clara Jobs, they played a far more significant role than you might initially expect, especially his father, Paul Jobs. You see, Steve was adopted, and there's this story about how his college fund was built. It gives you a really insightful glimpse into, well, the early entrepreneurial spirit, maybe, that surrounded him.
It really does. Paul Jobs had this very ingenious and resourceful side hustle, as you'd call it now.
Exactly, a side hustle.
He would find these old beat-up cars, sometimes getting them for practically nothing, like $50.
It's $50, yeah.
And then he'd meticulously work on them for weeks in his garage, carefully restoring them. Real hands-on work.
Putting in the hours.
Totally. Then he'd sell them for a tidy profit, maybe around, $250 a pop?
Yeah.
And this wasn't just pocket money. Isaacson points out it was a significant, steady source of income for the family.
Right. So Steve saw that firsthand, this practical, hands-on value creation.
Exactly. And what's truly insightful here is how that constant exposure to his father's meticulous work, literally rebuilding things from the ground up, ingrained unique kind of perfectionism in Steve.
Huh?
Paul Jobs, even though he was a high school dropout, he possessed this incredible knack for fixing things. He wasn't an electronics expert in theory.
No deep understanding.
But he encountered it all the time, fixing car engines, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So he taught Steve the rudiments of electronics.
Sparking that initial interest.
All right. Even though Steve apparently found the machine shop itself less compelling than the intricate circuits.
He's drawn to the electronics part.
Definitely. And this environment where raw, broken materials were transformed into something of far greater value through skill, care, sheer effort, It instilled a foundational understanding of craftsmanship
Craftsmanship, yeah.
and value creation. Even if it wasn't explicitly business focused then, for Paul, it wasn't just about making it work. It was about the integrity of the work, even the parts you couldn't see.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that idea, knowing how things are built inside out, ensuring even unseen elements are perfect, that resonates throughout Steve Jobs' entire career.
Absolutely. So, beyond his father's garage and those practical lessons, the house itself, the Jobs family home in Los Altos, that served as another profound influence, particularly on his developing aesthetic, his approach to design.
That's a really crucial detail, yeah. They lived in a very specific type of house, a Joseph Eichler home.
Eichler. Okay, tell us about that.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, Joseph Eichler was this developer, built over 11,000 homes in California, mainly between 1950 and 1974.
Wow, okay.
His designs were deeply inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright's vision, simple, modern homes for the American everyman.
Right.
What made them remarkable was they were relatively inexpensive, yet they had these cutting-edge elements. Floor-to-ceiling glass, open floor plans, exposed beams, concrete slab floors, even radiant heating.
Stuff that really impressed the young Jobs.
Deeply. He explicitly stated that Eichler's ability to bring really great design and simple capability to something that doesn't cost much was, and this is a quote, the original vision for Apple.
Well, a direct link.
A direct link. He said, that's what we tried to do with the first Mac. That's what we did with the iPod. It's not subtle. It's a direct lineage from his childhood home to Apple's whole product ethos.
So it wasn't just function, it was the experience of the design.
Exactly. The clean elegance, those awesome little features like the nice toasty floors he remembered. It instilled this idea that beautiful, thoughtful design could be democratized, made accessible, and that became bedrock for Apple.
Amazing. So foundational lessons in design and value from home. But his early curiosity, it led him to seek out knowledge in these incredibly unconventional ways, foreshadowing his later boldness, really.
Oh, completely.
I mean, get this. At just 12 years old, Jobs needed parts for a frequency counter project.
Right, measuring electronic pulses.
So what does he do? Picks up the phone book, looks up the home number for Bill Hewlett.
The Bill Hewlett, co-founder of HP.
Yes, and calls him at home.
It's just, the audacity is one thing, right? But the outcome is incredible.
What happened?
Hewlett actually chatted with this persistent 12-year-old for 20 minutes, got him the parts he needed, and then offered him a summer job at the HP plant, the one making frequency counters.
You're kidding.
Nope. It perfectly illustrates Jobs' audacious personality, his initiative, his almost uncanny ability to get what he wanted, even from huge figures. It's an early glimpse of that charisma, that reality distortion field, maybe.
Precursor, yeah.
Jobs recalled the work was mostly just putting nuts and bolts on things on the assembly line, and he remembered some resentment from coworkers.
Okay.
But cleverly, he ingratiated himself with the actual engineers by joining their daily 10 a.m. donut and coffee break upstairs.
Smart. Learning the ropes.
Right. It wasn't just assembly. It was learning to navigate hierarchies, ask questions, extract knowledge, skills that served him very well later on.
So that early independence, that rebellious streak,
Right.
it wasn't just cold calling CEOs or watching his dad work. It shaped his school life, too.
Oh, definitely. His independent spirit was clear throughout school.
So how did he interact with teachers, with authority?
Well, this brings up an important question. In 9th grade at Homestead High, he actually found a mentor. His electronics teacher, a Mr. McCollum.
Okay, a positive influence then.
Yes and no. Their dynamic was complex. McCollum believed strongly in military discipline and respect for authority.
And Jobs?
Jobs consistently affected this aloof rebelliousness. There's a great anecdote. Jobs once made a collect call to Burroughs in Detroit, a huge manufacturer.
Why?
He brazenly claimed he was designing a new product just to get a specific part he couldn't find locally.
Oh my goodness.
McCollum was absolutely furious, but Jobs' justification. Classic Jobs. I don't have the money for the phone call. They've got plenty of money.
Wow. The ends justify the means, even then.
Pretty much. It shows his early defiance, his willingness to bend or break rules for what he saw as a greater good, or maybe just his convenience, a trait that manifested again and again in business. McCollum himself said Jobs was usually off in a corner doing something on his own, fiercely independent, refused constraints.
That independent spirit, mixed with this growing interest in the counterculture of the time, that really shaped his next phase, right? Leading him briefly, to Reed College.
Exactly. Reed College, though his time there was short, became this place of profound influence, setting the stage for so much that came later.
Even though he dropped out.
Yeah, famously dropped out. But he kept auditing classes. And one specific course, calligraphy, taught by a former monk. It turned out to be incredibly, almost bizarrely influential.
Calligraphy. How did that connect?
It's fascinating. Jobs later explicitly credited that calligraphy course, taken just out of personal interest, for the Mac having multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts.
No way.
Yes. He even noted with his typical bravado, since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have them.
Ah, classic Jobs.
Right. But it exemplifies his almost intuitive gift for connecting seemingly disparate fields, ancient art, and cutting-edge tech to create innovative, user-friendly products. It shows how his personal curiosity directly impacted core features we take for granted now.
So it wasn't just about fonts.
No, beyond academics, Reed was a deep dive for him. Zen Buddhism, books like Autobiography of a Yogi, meditation.
Exploring spirituality.
Deeply. And he also openly credited psychedelic drugs, said, taking LSD was a profound experience, one of the most important things in my life.
Really? He said that publicly?
Oh, yeah. He believed these spiritual and counterculture influences raised his consciousness, helped him see things differently, and they directly fed into his unique approach to technology, design, partnerships.
Yeah.
He wasn't just building computers, he was trying, in his own way, to infuse them with a kind of soul. Okay, so if we connect that foundational period to the actual birth of Apple, his return to Atari after that India trip was absolutely pivotal.
Right, back to the tech world, but changed.
Exactly. And this is where his partnership with his friend Steve Wozniak really started to solidify, particularly on a project for the arcade game Breakout.
Ah, Breakout. I remember that.
So Jobs gets this challenge: design a single-player Pong version in 4 days. 4 days, with a bonus for using fewer than 50 chips on the circuit board.
Tight deadline. Big incentive.
Very. So he immediately goes to Wozniak, asks for help, offers to split the fee, but, and this is really telling, he deliberately hides the bonus and the super tight deadline.
He lied. Or omitted.
Well, he invented a cover story, said he needed to rush off to the All-One farm for an urgent apple harvest.
An apple harvest. Seriously.
Seriously. So Wozniak, totally unaware of the full stakes, pulls off this incredible feat of engineering, completes it in 4 days using only 45 chips. Just amazing efficiency.
Wow. Wozniak was brilliant, but what about the bonus?
This is where the underlying dynamics and Jobs' emergent character really show. Wozniak found out years later that Jobs kept the entire bonus for himself, just paid Wozniak the small agreed fee. Wozniak admitted it caused him real pain.
Ouch, that's rough.
It is. But the anecdote vividly illustrates Jobs' early manipulative tendencies, and maybe more remarkably, his astonishing ability to push people to do the seemingly impossible. That's a core part of his developing reality distortion field.
Right. Pushing boundaries, maybe blurring ethical lines.
And it highlights the asymmetric nature of their partnership right from the start. Wozniak's pure engineering genius, just wanting to create, meeting Jobs' entrepreneurial drive, his commercial vision, and an occasional or maybe frequent lack of scruples to achieve his goals.
But that collaboration, flawed as it was, became foundational.
Absolutely. Led directly to their involvement with the Homebrew Computer Club and ultimately the birth of Apple itself.
Okay, let's talk about the Homebrew Computer Club. That sounds like such a pivotal place in time.
It really was a crucible. It shaped not just their products, but their whole philosophy. This informal group formed after the January '75 issue of Popular Mechanics featured the Altair personal computer kit.
The Altair, right. The first real personal computer kit.
Exactly. It just ignited the imaginations of hobbyists, hackers, engineers all over the Bay Area. The club's motto, its rallying cry, was "Computer power to the people."
Very counterculture.
Totally resonated with the ethos of the time. It became this vital hub for exchanging ideas, schematics, code. A community eager to break computing out of corporate mainframes and put it in the hands of individuals.
Liberating technology.
Precisely. This environment was crucial. It fostered the radical idea of personal computing as a tool for individual expression, shifting its image from, an Orwellian tool of big government or corporations.
And Jobs absorbed that ethos.
Profoundly. He often quoted the Whole Earth catalog and its "stay hungry, stay foolish" motto.
Yeah.
That perfect fusion of counterculture idealism and tech innovation.
Ono said something about that, right?
Yeah, Bono later reflected, maybe with a bit of exaggeration, that pot-smoking, sandal-wearing hippies from the West Coast like Steve invented the 21st century because they saw differently.
Mm-hmm.
And it was right in this setting that Wozniak had his key insight. Integrate a microprocessor, keyboard, screen into one accessible package. That led directly to the Apple I.
So that shift in thinking, marrying counterculture ideals with Wozniak's technical brilliance, that catalyzed the Apple I. But their approaches were so different, weren't they?
Night and day. Wozniak's creations, like his infamous blue box for making free phone calls.
Right, the phone freaking device.
They were conceived to be free. That reflected his open, hacker-at-heart nature, almost anarchic about information. But Jobs, he saw something else entirely.
A business.
A business opportunity, exactly. A chance to build something enduring. He fiercely convinced Wozniak that instead of just giving away schematics for his computer design, they should sell printed circuit boards.
Wozniak must have been hesitant.
Initially dubious about making money, yeah. But Jobs swayed him with this powerful, almost messianic argument. Even if we lose our money, we'll have a company. For once in our lives, we'll have a company.
Wow. It wasn't just about the product, it was about the company.
Right from the start. That drive to build an entity, a legacy. So, to raise capital, Wozniak sold his beloved HP 65 calculator for $500.
His prize calculator.
And Jobs, equally committed, sold his iconic Volkswagen bus for $1,500.
That really shows their symbiosis, doesn't it? Wes's genius, Jobs' vision and drive.
Perfectly. Inventive genius meets commercial vision and this uncanny ability to inspire, persuade, maybe manipulate sometimes. They even briefly brought in Ron Wayne from Atari as a tiebreaker.
Ron Wayne, the third founder who left early.
That's him. He offered this fascinating early assessment. Jobs was driven by demons, while Wozniak was toyed with by angels, highlighting their contrasting yet somehow complementary personalities.
Demons and angels, what a partnership. So the modest success of the Apple I paved the way for the Apple II, which is a much bigger deal.
A monumental leap. The Apple II became a major success, but not without Jobs' intensifying push for perfection, even on stuff nobody would ever see.
Like what?
Like the circuit board lines. He insisted on absolute perfection, the straightness, the alignment, directly inspired, Isaacson says, by his father's meticulous car repairs, where the unseen internal mechanics mattered just as much as the outside.
That craftsmanship idea again. But that must have caused friction.
Oh, yeah. This absolute control instinct often clashed with Wozniak's more open hacker ethos. Was always a hacker at heart, believing in user empowerment.
Right.
Wanted 8 expansion slots on the Apple II for user customization, tinkering.
And Jobs.
Jobs, with his emerging vision of a completely controlled, seamless user experience, initially insisted on only 2 slots. Printer and modem. That's it.
Who won that argument?
Wozniak actually won that one. But he acutely sensed his power waning, an early, ominous sign of Jobs' increasing dominance over the company's technical direction.
And the scale of the Apple II project was huge for them then.
Immense. The tooling alone cost $100,000. Production, another $200,000. A fortune for a young garage company.
Must have seemed crazy.
Totally. Nolan Bushnell, Atari's founder, later famously regretted not investing $50,000 for a third of the company when Jobs asked him. Shows the huge value Jobs was already creating, even if others couldn't see it yet.
So Apple II's a hit, Apple is established, but internally things are shifting, setting the stage for the Macintosh.
Exactly. The Macintosh project really brings Jobs' intense leadership style into sharp focus.
How so?
Yeah.
He took it over, right?
Yeah, he essentially wrestled control from its original visionary, Jeff Raskin, and immediately radically reshaped the whole vision.
Raskin's idea was different.
Very different. Raskin envisioned a low-cost appliance, something like a boxy carry-on suitcase, affordable, functional,
And
job-strapped portability entirely, demanded a distinctive, compact desktop design, famously insisted its footprint be no larger than a phone book.
a phone book that seems so arbitrary.
But it was a transformative design constraint, forced the engineers to rethink everything. He also brought in key talent, like the engineer Andy Hertzfeld,
How did he recruit him?
with this notoriously direct, intimidating question. Are you any good? We only want really good people working on the Mac, and I'm not sure you're good enough.
Wow. Brutal.
That's Jobs. Relentless pursuit of his vision, demanding, often brutally direct leadership style, blunt assessments of people, ideas, pushing for the absolute best, often to the brink.
And the Mac team became its own little world.
Totally. They moved to a separate building, Texaco Towers, to escape the bureaucracy. And in this moment, highlighting his capricious but motivating nature, Jobs told them to buy a stereo for the office.
And did they?
Hertzfeld and Burrell Smith immediately raced out and bought a silver cassette-based boombox before he could change his mind. Jobs' leadership, defined by that reality distortion field, was already in full mesmerizing effect during the Mac's development.
Okay, let's really unpack this term that seems to define so much of Steve Jobs. The reality distortion field. It sounds like something out of sci-fi. What exactly was it?
It really does sound like sci-fi, and the origin is fascinating. Bud Tribble, one of the Mac's software designers, he actually coined the term. Borrowed it straight from Star Trek.
Star Trek, seriously.
Yep, where aliens create their own world through sheer mental force. Tribble meant it as both a profound compliment and a crucial caution. He said, it was dangerous to get caught in Steve's distortion field, but it was what led him to actually be able to change reality.
Change reality.
Wow. Andy Hertzfeld, another Mac team member often caught in its pull, described it as a confounding melange, a powerful, almost intoxicating blend of charisma, indomitable will, and this, well, disconcerting eagerness to bend any fact to fit the purpose.
So it wasn't just lying.
It wasn't just cynical manipulation, it was deeper, almost an unconscious defiance of reality itself. Debbie Coleman, another colleague, recalled feeling laser-beamed by Jobs. Compare it to Rasputin. You drank it, she said, even if it was purple Kool-Aid.
You just believed him.
You did. Wozniak maybe captured it best, ever the grounded engineer. You realize that it can't be true, but he somehow makes it true. This extraordinary mental force let Jobs inspire his team to achieve the impossible, because inside that field, they literally didn't realize it was impossible until the field wore off.
So this wasn't just a quirk. It was fundamental to him. Which leads to the deeper question. What fueled this? Where did this ability to distort reality come from?
At its deepest root, Isaacson argues, it stemmed from Jobs' almost unshakable conviction that the normal rules just didn't apply to him.
He was special.
He genuinely believed he was special, a chosen one, an enlightened one, almost like Einstein, Gandhi, or the gurus he met in India.
Like an Ubermensch.
Hertzfeld hinted at that, yeah. This Nietzschean will to power, where the spirit wills its own will, conquers the world through sheer force. He'd simply ignore reality if it didn't conform to his will or vision.
Which could be powerful.
Incredibly powerful. It allowed him to push boundaries, challenge conventional wisdom like few others could or would.
But also dangerous.
Absolutely. It also led to some of his more controversial, difficult actions, like his initial denial of paternity for his daughter Lisa, or his troubling initial refusal of surgery when diagnosed with cancer, choosing alternative remedies instead.
Believing he could will it away.
Exactly. Hertzfeld also noted his binary way of categorizing things. People were enlightened or an asshole. Work was the best or totally shitty.
Black and white thinking.
Very. But interestingly, these categories were not immutable. He could rapidly reverse himself, often adopting someone else's idea as his own a week later. Hertzfeld Riley called it the Diaghilev pirouette.
Huh. So this fluid approach to reality, this constant striving for the best, it profoundly shaped design at Apple, right? His quest for simplicity, elegance, legendary, but often driven by intense demands.
Absolutely legendary. His personal aesthetic, his philosophy deeply informed the product vision. Apple's mantra, championed tirelessly by Jobs. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Making things intuitive.
Right. Making products intuitively obvious. Pioneering desktop metaphors users instantly got. His inspiration came from diverse sources. Japanese Zen Buddhism, which he found aesthetically sublime, linking it to Kyoto gardens.
Okay.
And designers like Dieter Rams and his iconic Braun products. This highlights his core belief. Design wasn't just superficial aesthetics. It was integral to function, ease of use, the whole experience.
He took it super seriously.
Super serious, but Isaacson notes, at the same time there's a sense of play. He demanded the Mac's design look friendly, leading to that human face resemblance, the recessed chin, avoiding a Neanderthal forehead.
Obsessing over details.
Tiny details, like the precise hue of gray on restroom signs in Apple stores. Famously agonizing over subtle pinstripes on a Mac's title bar, declaring, "Can you imagine looking at that every day? It's not just a little thing, it's something we have to do right."
Wow.
It was that relentless, almost irrational pursuit of perfection in every single detail, seen or unseen, that truly set Apple products apart, redefined consumer expectations.
That design obsession, that binary view of best or shitty, it often came with a confrontational style, didn't it? Especially with competitors and even his own teams.
Oh, yeah. His binary view permeated his view of the whole industry. He fiercely saw competitors, especially IBM, as a force for evil.
IBM, really?
Called them Microsoft at its worst for stifling innovation, he thought. Internally, he deliberately fostered an unhealthy rivalry between the Mac team and the Lisa team.
Pitting them against each other?
Yep. Portraying his Mac engineers as the cool kids, the rebels, versus the plodding HP engineer types on the Lisa team. It was calculated.
Why?
The Mac, as he saw it, was a scaled-down version of the Lisa, explicitly designed to undercut it in the marketplace. Shows his competitive ruthlessness, his strategic thinking.
You played hardball.
Always. When Bill Gates came to discuss Mac applications, Jobs, in full reality distortion mode, described this utopian dream factory churning out millions of Macs.
Selling the dream.
So effectively that the Microsoft team codenamed their Windows project Sand, Steve's amazing new device. This us versus them mentality, while super motivating for his hand-picked Mac team, often created huge internal strife. And, unsurprisingly, external antagonisms that defined his competitive landscape for decades.
And that competitive fire, that proprietary view of innovation, it ignited into that legendary showdown with Bill Gates over Windows. This wasn't just business, it was personal.
Absolutely personal. A clash of titans that shaped the future of computing, and the seeds were sown years earlier.
How so?
Jobs had this crucial, maybe unspoken, agreement that Microsoft wouldn't create graphical software for anyone but Apple until a year after the Mac was supposed to ship, January '83.
Supposed to.
Right. But the Mac launch got delayed, pushed back a full year, which unintentionally allowed Gates to legitimately announce Windows in November '83 as his original agreement was technically expiring.
Ooh, tricky timing. Jobs must have been furious.
Absolutely livid. Immediately ordered Mike Boich, Apple's software evangelist, to get Gates down here immediately for a confrontation.
A showdown?
Totally. Gates recalled it as a command performance, walking into a room where Jobs was in full sales mode, but kind of the sales mode that also says, I don't need you, but I might let you be involved.
Ooh, intimidating.
Then Jobs launches into this tirade, accusing Gates of shamelessly ripping off other people's ideas.
But wait, didn't Apple?
Exactly. The irony, right? Jobs conveniently ignored that Apple itself had drawn heavily from the groundbreaking work at Xerox ProVerse.
Yeah. The birthplace of the graphical interface, the mouse.
Right, where many of those core concepts were first developed. Gates coolly justified his actions, said Microsoft had an equal right to use Xerox ideas. They too believed in graphics interfaces. They'd seen the Xerox Alto.
So Gates called his bluff.
Pretty much. This incident profoundly underscores Jobs' intensely proprietary view of innovation, even when derived from common sources, and his deep-seated, almost personal rivalry with Gates, a rivalry that just went on and on.
Yeah.
And all this escalating tension, external with competitors like Microsoft, internal with teams like Lisa, it all came to a head, a dramatic power struggle that led to Jobs leaving Apple.
His first departure, yeah. It raises big questions about leadership, corporate dynamics. That friction between Jobs and John Scully, the CEO, it boiled over.
It really did. And Scully, remember, was the guy Jobs famously courted from Pepsi with that irresistible challenge. Do you want to spend the rest of your life selling sugared water, or do you want a chance to change the world?
Iconic line. But then Scully became his boss.
Exactly. And as Mac sales, despite the hype, started to disappoint, Jobs' already volatile mood swings, his abusive behavior towards colleagues, it got worse. Much worse.
People started speaking out.
Yeah. Mike Murray, Apple's marketing chief then, publicly criticized Jobs' management by character assassination, really highlighted the destructive side of his perfectionism.
So this period really shows Jobs struggling, right? Adapting to a structured corporate role. His volatility became too disruptive.
Completely. The board, frankly, got fed up. The constant turmoil, Jobs' erratic behavior, they ultimately sided with Scully. Gave him the authority to remove Jobs from his operational role.
Effectively firing him.
Effectively firing him from the company he co-founded. Jobs, in a desperate last move, even tried plotting a coup to oust Scully, oscillating wildly, calling Scully terrific one minute, trying to fire him the next, just chaos.
What did Wozniak think?
Wozniak, ever forgiving, heard about the ouster and prophetically said, Gil Amelio meets Steve Jobs, game over. Referring, of course, to Jobs' eventual triumphant return years later under a different CEO.
But at the time, it must have been devastating for Jobs.
Absolutely. Though Arthur Rock, the venture capitalist and Apple board member, famously reflected later that being fired might have been the best thing ever to happen to Steve.
Why? How could that be good?
Rock's point, and Isaacson explores this, is that it forced him to learn invaluable lessons outside the Apple bubble, forced a period of introspection, growth, maybe even humility, though humility might be a strong word for Jobs.
Huh, maybe. So, that time away at NextT in Pixar, that was crucial for his development, even though NextT struggled commercially.
Absolutely crucial. NextT became his personal laboratory, a place to indulge all of his instincts, both good and bad, without a public board breathing down his neck.
So he built amazing things that didn't sell.
Exactly. Spectacular products that were dazzling market flops, beautiful machines, engineering marvels, but they failed to find a mass audience. This, though, was his true learning experience, a series of brilliant failures.
Brilliant failures. I like that.
Essential for refining his vision, his leadership, his understanding of sustainable business. He focused intensely on design at NextT, even convinced the legendary Paul Rand.
The logo guy, IBM, UPS.
That's him.
Yeah.
Convinced Rand to do the NextT logo, even though Rand was under strict contract with IBM.
Yeah.
Just pure Jobsian persuasion.
What did competitors think of NextT?
Bill Gates famously critiqued the NextT machine publicly, said,
Blech.
I'll piss on it, because its optical disc had too low latency and the fucking case was too expensive.
Gates never minced words either.
Nope. Jobs, in turn, stubbornly insisted next step, their operating system was the next wave of computing. And while NextT hardware failed and they shifted to software, that software, Next Step, provided the essential technological groundwork for his return to Apple. And crucially, NextT led him to Pixar.
Ah, Pixar, where he connected technology and art in this huge, groundbreaking way.
That's the story. And what's fascinating about Pixar is the scale of Jobs' personal investment, his unwavering beliefs.
How much did he put in?
Nearly $50 million of his own money. More than half of what he'd initially made from Apple. Poured it into Pixar, even while NextT was hemorrhaging cash. An astonishing act of faith.
And it paid off.
Big time. Pixar's short film, Tin Toy, won an Academy Award in '88. First computer-generated film to do so. Groundbreaking.
Disney must have noticed.
Oh, yeah. Disney wanted John Lasseter, Pixar's creative genius, to come back to them. But Lasseter, loyal to Jobs' vision, chose to stay here and make history at Pixar.
Wow. Loyalty.
Then Jobs, with his keen business sense, his foresight, struck this groundbreaking deal with Disney. Pixar puts up half the money for films, but takes half the profits. Anticipating their blockbuster success when others in Hollywood still doubted computer animation.
Smart. Betting on themselves.
Totally. It shows his enduring belief in converging art and tech, his ability to create great companies with valuable brands beyond just Apple. He famously refused to let Disney make sequels to Toy Story without Pixar's involvement, called it molesting our children.
Strong words.
By '97, he'd secured an even better deal. Equal branding with Disney for 5 films over 10 years. Cemented Pixar as a creative powerhouse. That huge investment, that commitment, even while losing money elsewhere. Pivotal. Proved he could build a truly creative, enduring company from scratch.
And it was that immense success at Pixar, combined with Apple just struggling, sinking really, that created the perfect storm for his dramatic return. Let's unpack this epic second coming. He officially rejoined in January '97, right?
Yeah.
Initially just as an advisor.
That's right, part-time advisor. But his influence grew almost immediately, and ruthlessly. He openly felt Gil Amelio, the CEO then, was a bozo. Found the advisory role demeaning.
But Apple needed him.
Desperately. The company was precarious, teetering on bankruptcy. Then Amelio made a misstep at Macworld, failed to electrify the audience. Jobs sensed the moment, felt his magic was uniquely needed.
Timing is everything.
It shows his shrewdness. Waiting for the opportune moment to reclaim control, leveraging his perceived indispensability, the company's desperation. His return signaled that crucial shift back, focus on great products, not just to make money, the core philosophy lost in his absence.
What was Wozniak's reaction?
Wozniak, who famously forgave easily, still had deep affection for Jobs. He was thrilled, uttered that perfect line, Gil Amelio meets Steve Jobs, game over. Instantly captured the irreversible changing of the guard.
And then came the Think Different campaign.
Brilliant move. Launched under Jobs' direct supervision, it repositioned the brand completely, aligned Apple with anti-corporate, creative, innovative rebel, skillfully aligning Apple with his own rebel streak even as he was becoming a billionaire.
Creating a lifestyle brand.
Exactly. Larry Ellison, Oracle's founder, his close friend, noted astutely that Jobs created the only lifestyle brand in the tech industry, a profound insight into Apple's unique, almost cult-like appeal, far beyond just technology.
So this re-engagement, reasserting his vision, it immediately led to focusing on core products, right? And this revolutionary approach to retail, the Apple stores. How did he completely reimagine that?
It's fascinating because he realized traditional computer sales just wouldn't work for Apple. Seeing Apple products sitting passively on shelves next to generic Dells or HPs
Lost the magic.
completely lost it. Buried under some $50 spiff for a salesperson. He believed the message of innovation, integrated design, unique experience was being totally lost. He envisioned a space where customers could experience Apple products, the Apple ethos, fully.
So how did he build it?
He recruited Ron Johnson from Target, a retail visionary, shared passion for design, customer experience. Together, in absolute secrecy, they built a prototype store in a vacant Cupertino warehouse.
The secret prototype store.
Yep. Walked the space for 6 months, iterating every single design detail, down to the last fixture. Shows his meticulous attention to detail, his insistence on end-to-end control, from product design to the final purchase experience.
Was the board supportive?
Deeply skeptical initially. Pointed to Gateway's disastrous retail failures. Business Week famously ran the headline, "Sorry, Steve, here's why Apple stores won't work."
Ouch. They were wrong.
Spectacularly wrong. The first store opened May 2001, quickly defied all expectations, averaged an astonishing 5,400 visitors per week by 2004, set an unprecedented retail record, reached $1.2 billion in revenue faster than any other retailer ever.
Incredible.
Jobs even personally patented the signature glass staircases, became iconic, obsessed with every element of the customer experience. The stores weren't just sales outlets, they were immersive, beautiful environments. Physical manifestations of the Apple ethos, a direct extension of his product philosophy.
Those retail stores, yeah, a testament to his vision, creating that physical manifestation of the Apple ethos. And that same drive, seamless integration, superior user experience, it extended right into redefining digital content. Which brings us to music. iTunes, the iPod, that classic Jobsian digital hub strategy.
Absolutely classic and brilliantly executed. He once again showed his genius for integrating hardware and software into this seamless, intuitive experience that didn't just join an industry, it completely revolutionized it.
How did iTunes come about?
Apple acquired a small music software company, SoundJam. Under Jobs' relentless direction, they transformed it into iTunes. He pushed engineers constantly for simpler and more fun interfaces.
Simple was key.
Always. Instead of complex menus that frustrated users, Jobs insisted on a remarkably simple search box. Type anything, instantly find music. Then came the iPod, October 2001, famously promising 1,000 songs in your pocket.
An incredible promise then.
Unheard of. Jobs immersed himself in the iPod project daily. Applied his famous 3-click rule for navigation. If he couldn't get to a song or function in 3 intuitive clicks, it was brutal. Needed re-engineering.
Brutal.
Tony Fadell, a key iPod engineer, recalled frequent holy shit moments when Jobs, with a single insight, would redefine a problem, make their little problem go away instantly.
And Jobs being Jobs.
Yeah.
There was that launch moment.
Oh, yeah. Perfectly captures his counterculture roots, his willingness to shock. At the iTunes launch, he openly reminisced about dropping acid. Said it was one of the 2 or 3 most important things he'd done in his life. Claimed, controversially, that people who had never taken acid would never fully understand him.
Wow. Only Jobs.
Only Jobs. But this period saw him streamlining incredibly complex tech into elegant, utterly user-friendly solutions, completely redefined how we consumed music.
And it wasn't just the tech, the design. This brings up his business acumen again. He somehow got the record labels, notoriously resistant, to agree to 99-cent songs. How did he pull that off? They'd fought that for years against piracy.
It's truly fascinating, his unparalleled negotiation skills in action. He didn't just offer a product. He strategically tied the iTunes store, the software, and the iPod into this single, seamless, unassailable, complete system.
The ecosystem.
Exactly. Then he used his formidable charisma, his vision, to convince deeply skeptical figures like Doug Morris at Universal Music. Morris was at his wit's end with piracy, the music industry's total lack of tech skill.
Desperate for a solution.
And Jobs convinced him Apple had the solution. Morris was so impressed he famously told his own tech VP, Of course we have to rely on Steve Jobs to do this because we don't have anyone at Universal who knows anything about technology.
Basically admitting defeat.
Totally. Jobs' charm, his confidence, his integrated vision, so powerful that major artists like U2 and Bob Dylan, who'd previously spurned commercial endorsements, later actively sought out Apple for exposure.
U2 and Dylan. Wow.
Bono vividly recalled flying to Palo Alto, personally convincing Jobs to feature U2 in an iPod commercial for free, recognizing Apple is a different kind of brand, and it's cooler than the brand of most artists.
That's huge cultural cachet.
Massive. And the impact was undeniable. Bob Dylan's Modern Times album, boosted by an iPod ad, became his first #1 hit in 30 years. Just shows the immense marketing power Apple wielded.
So that astonishing success with music directly informed the next, even bigger disruption, mobile phones. What does this all mean for the iPhone? It wasn't just another phone, was it? It was a total reimagination stemming from earlier tablet work.
Exactly. It's a lesser-known fact, but the idea for the iPad actually came before the iPhone.
Really?
Yeah. Apple teams were initially exploring a tablet project, but Jobs, always the arbiter of intuitive interaction, famously saw a Microsoft tablet demo and declared, "As soon as you have a stylus, you're dead." Fundamentally flawed, cumbersome, he thought.
No stylus. Finger input only.
Demanded a revolutionary multi-touch screen. No keyboard, no stylus.
Yeah.
Purely finger-based interaction. Natural, direct. Shows his almost prophetic understanding of user experience, his unwavering commitment to simplicity.
Where did multi-touch come from?
The technology itself was actually privately prototyped by Jony Ive's design team for MacBook Pro trackpads. Ive, keenly aware of Jobs' quick to give an opinion nature, cleverly showed him the multi-touch prototype privately, wisely feared Jobs might piss on the idea if an audience was present.
Smart move by Ive.
Very. Jobs was immediately captivated, declared, "This is the future," then decisively redirected multi-touch efforts to the more urgent phone project.
And the iPhone design itself evolved.
Oh, yeah. The initial design had a glass screen in an aluminum case, but Jobs, characteristic moment of almost spiritual discontent, woke up one morning, declared, "I didn't sleep last night. I just didn't love it."
Didn't love it. Why?
Felt it was too masculine. Instantly ordered a complete redesign, leading to that iconic, all about the display look. Thin stainless steel edges, durable Gorilla Glass.
Which meant sealing the battery in.
Exactly. Non-replaceable batteries, which crucially allowed them to be thinner because, as Jobs always believed, thin is beautiful.
And the launch itself, like
Right.
all Apple launches under Jobs.
Yeah.
Pure theater, a masterclass.
Absolutely. The iPhone launch, January 2007 at Macworld, was truly a seminal event, quickly dubbed the Jesus phone by awestruck bloggers.
Because Jesus phone, right.
Jobs, iconic black turtleneck, jeans, masterfully unveiled it not as one product, but 3 revolutionary products in one.
What were the 3?
A widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. Then, dramatic pause, signature showman's flair, he revealed, "These are not 3 separate devices, this is one device, and we are calling it iPhone."
Chills. Just brilliant presentation.
Testament to his unparalleled showmanship, ability to build anticipation, capture the zeitgeist, fundamentally redefine categories. Competitors like Microsoft's Steve Ballmer famously dismissed it.
What did Ballmer say?
It said it cost too much at $500 and laughably lacked a keyboard, a severe miscalculation that cost Microsoft dearly in mobile.
The market disagreed with Ballmer.
Loudly. By end of 2010, Apple sold a staggering 90 million iPhones, reaping more than half of the total profits generated in the global cell phone market. Astounding achievement. Reshaped the entire industry.
Even pioneers recognized it.
Yeah, even Alan Kay, the Xerox PR legend who envisioned the Dynabook tablet decades earlier, he recognized the profundity. Told Jobs, "Make the screen 5 inches by 8 inches and you'll rule the world." Prophetic, given the later equally monumental success of the iPad, which stemmed directly from this iPhone work.
So as we move into Jobs' later years, the story gets, well, deeply intertwined with his health. His diagnosis, his treatments, it became a major public concern, influenced his appearances, the company's transparency. What does this tell us about his approach to his own mortality?
It's truly fascinating and, frankly, at times heartbreaking. To see the intersection of his ingrained reality distortion field with his personal health. Diagnosed in 2004, rare pancreatic neuroendocrine tumor.
Great. Not the most common aggressive kind initially.
Exactly. But he initially, controversially, refused conventional surgery, opted instead for a strict vegan diet, acupuncture, various herbal remedies from alternative practitioners.
Trying to control it his way.
His wife, Laureen Powell, noted this as a profound example of his magical thinking. His deep-seated, almost absolute assumption that he could, through sheer willpower, just will things to be as he wanted. Even illness.
But reality intruded.
It took a follow-up CT scan showing significant tumor growth to finally force him to confront medical reality, undergo the necessary surgery. Years later, though, he released that misleading open letter in January 2009.
Attributing his weight loss to something else.
Yeah, to a hormone imbalance, not the painful truth of cancer metastasis. It highlights his belief in controlling reality, even his own biology, and the eventual painful necessity of confronting irrefutable scientific fact.
They must have taken a toll on those around him, too.
Immense toll. Joni Ive, his close design confidant, felt devastated by public stories claiming Apple's innovation relied solely on Jobs. While Tim Cook, stepping in as interim CEO during Jobs' medical leaves, articulated the Cook doctrine of Apple's value.
What was that?
Basically outlining Apple's core principles, ensuring continuity. But it initially rankled Jobs, made him question his own indispensability, the narrative of his solitary genius, perhaps.
Despite these huge personal health challenges, his commitment to Apple, his vision, it remained unwavering, even when facing major PR crises. That resilience is incredible.
It really defined his leadership in those final years. It's particularly fascinating to see how he handled AntennaGate, the controversy around the iPhone 4.
Oh yeah, AntennaGate, that was huge.
Huge. Consumer Reports publicly stated they couldn't recommend the iPhone 4, antenna problems, signal drops when you held it a certain way, media frenzy, PR nightmare.
How did Jobs react initially?
Defensive. Even aggressive. Publicly accused competitors like Google, Motorola of mischief for fanning the flames.
Oh, then he changed tack.
His longtime PR advisor, Regis McKenna, urged him, don't grovel or apologize. Just lay out the truth, the data. Appear firm and confident.
Control the narrative.
Exactly. It allowed Jobs to transform a potential disaster into a moment of strength, leadership. He directly addressed it. We're not perfect. Phones are not perfect. We all know that. But we want to make our users happy.
And offered a solution.
Pragmatic solution. Free bumper cases to fix the grip issue, or full returns. Scott Adams, Dilbert's creator, lauded Jobs' high ground maneuver as a new public relations standard. Masterful crisis management, even when facing genuine product flaws. That was tactical Jobs at his best.
That extraordinary resilience, refusing to be derailed, it defined him right to the end, even as he looked to the furthest horizons. iCloud, a radical new campus. His final grand vision, moving the digital hub from the PC to the cloud.
It shows his incredible foresight. Seeing around corners in the tech industry, he was acutely aware of the innovator's dilemma, inventors often being the last to see beyond their own creations.
So how did he avoid that trap for Apple?
His solution, recognized the digital hub, the center of our digital lives, was shifting fundamentally from the PC to the cloud. He took Apple's previous, somewhat maligned cloud attempt, MobileMe.
MobileMe? Yeah, that wasn't great.
Made it entirely free, committed to building massive, sophisticated server farms in North Carolina to lock in the customer with seamless content syncing across all devices.
Creating that sticky ecosystem again.
Exactly. Unveiling iCloud in June 2011, visibly gaunt, frail from his illness. He self-deprecatingly joked about MobileMe's failure, but stressed this new vision of effortlessly synced content. Music, photos, documents, everything.
Still pushing the integrated vision.
Unwavering commitment. Integrated hardware, software, services, ecosystems, ensuring Apple's relevance for decades. And beyond tech, his ambition extended to the physical realm, personally presenting plans for the new Apple headquarters.
It's a spaceship campus.
That breathtaking spaceship-like circular building, aiming for nothing less than the best office building in the world, enduring holistic ambition for Apple's physical and digital presence.
Beyond his tech vision, he also engaged directly with national issues, right? Offering blunt assessments even to President Obama. What does that tell us about his broader impact?
It's fascinating. His sheer willingness to speak his mind, no filters, no deference, even to the president. During a private meeting, he notoriously told Obama, "You're headed for a one-term presidency."
Wow. Unsolicited advice.
Stark, unsolicited advice for a more business-friendly administration. He critically cited the immense difficulty building factories in America, regulations, lack of skilled labor, sharply contrasted it with China.
Why China?
Pointed out specifically, Apple employed 700,000 factory workers in China because they could instantly find 30,000 on-site engineers needed for manufacturing. Simply unavailable in America, he argued.
Did Obama listen?
apparently made a strong impression on Obama. Jobs also fiercely criticized America's hopelessly antiquated education system, passionately advocated breaking teachers' unions, making all learning materials digital, interactive, tailoring education to the modern world.
Applying his problem solving to society.
Connecting abstract societal problems to practical, engineering-minded solutions, even if his advice wasn't always fully deferred to, much to his personal annoyance. These interactions again show that reality distortion field in action, shaping products, companies, relationships, his legacy.
So when we look back, what does this all mean for Steve Jobs' overall legacy? Complex figure, often contradictory, but his impact is just undeniable.
Undeniable. Walter Isaacson, his biographer, places Jobs firmly in the pantheon right next to Edison and Ford, boldly asserts him as the greatest business executive of our era.
High praise. How did Jobs see his own legacy?
Jobs himself defined his ultimate passion not as wealth, but building an enduring company where people were motivated to make great products. Everything else was secondary.
A company over the product, in a way.
The enduring culture that created the products. His legacy isn't just isolated inventions. It's his unparalleled mastery of integrating disparate ideas. Art, technology, business, human intuition. Relentlessly pushing for perfection, end-to-end control, resulting in what Isaacson beautifully calls poetry and processors.
Poetry and processors. Love that. And his difficult personality.
He famously described his brutally honest communication style, often seen as harsh, as absolutely necessary for fostering excellence. Believed, if something sucks, I tell people to their face.
Tough love, maybe?
Or just tough. He frequently compared Apple's relentless innovation to transformative moments in music, Dylan going electric, the Beatles constantly evolving. You always have to keep pushing to innovate, he'd insist. If you're not busy being born, you're busy dying.
Stay hungry, stay foolish, right to the end.
Exactly. His deepest motivation, he revealed, was simply to contribute something back to our species. Leave a lasting mark beyond himself. He created not just products, but a philosophy, a corporate DNA, an expectation of excellence that continues to thrive and influence us today.
Wow. What an incredible deep dive we've taken into the mind, the life, the monumental impact of Steve Jobs. We've explored, well, everything from those foundational influences in Eichler Holmes, those audacious calls to Bill Hewlett,
Right back to the beginning.
to the chaotic but utterly brilliant birth of Apple, that transformative wilderness period of NXT and Pixar, and his triumphant industry-redefining return, reshaping entire industries, iPod, iPhone, iPad.
We've truly seen how his legendary reality distortion field could, both inspire these impossible feats of engineering and creativity, while also, let's be real, causing immense frustration, pushing people to their absolute limit.
That double-edged sword again.
Exactly. His unwavering passion for exquisite design, his insistence on end-to-end control, shaping every single product Apple created, truly revolutionary. His core philosophy that real artists ship, his relentless, almost spiritual pursuit of simplicity, even facing intense technological and personal challenges, it changed the world.
It really did. So as you, our listener, reflect on this extraordinary journey, maybe consider this provocative thought. Steve Jobs was utterly convinced, wasn't he, that the best way to create enduring value in the 21st century was to find that powerful, often unexpected intersection where creativity meets technology.
That interception was everything to him.
So, as we look at the world today, what other seemingly disparate fields, when combined with that same kind of passion, that relentless, almost obsessive pursuit of perfection, what could be the next frontier for truly profound innovation?
That's the question, isn't it? What crazy idea, perhaps born from the unexpected intersection of overlooked disciplines or this unconventional thinking? What idea do you believe is waiting, just waiting right now, to make its own indelible dent in the universe?